Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Tate Talk Sports Podcast, here with another video. And in today's video, I am going to be doing a kind of recap slash reaction of the NBA Finals and the results. And before I get into the Bucks, I'm just going to start out the video with a big shout out for the Suns and how much credit they deserve for the run that they made into these playoffs and their players and everyone, and just how well they did with most of their roster, it being their first ever playoff run, let alone finals run. Obviously, Chris Paul deserves much more and deserves a ton of credit. Although he didn't necessarily pull through in this series, he got real close, and it's definitely sad to see him lose. Devin Booker showed that he can be the guy for the Suns going forward in the future. I think to be a true number one, he might need to show a bit more playmaking, but we saw the shot making in this series and throughout these playoffs and how good he is there. So we know how good he can be. We saw how good Ayton was in these playoffs. He somewhat struggled in the playoffs and maybe needs to get a bit better in his post game, but he's another player who's still super young and again was his first playoffs run. So a lot of room for improvement there. Just overall amazing performances with a lot to build on for the Phoenix Suns. So they've got a lot to look forward to in the coming years of their franchise. But now we get into the Milwaukee Bucks, of course, the now NBA champions. Just what an amazing playoff run by these Bucks and by Giannis and by Middleton and by all the players on this team. The whole team was awesome. So many players were important. Pat Connaughton, a role shooter, Bobby Portis with massive energy boosting performances, and not just energy boosting, but in the last game, I believe he had around 18 points. Just really came through in big situations and boosted the team. PJ Tucker locking down players. You know, he had games where he wouldn't even score a point, but he would use all 6 of his fouls, and he would do as much as he could to stop KD, to stop Devin Booker, stop all the guys that they played. Amazing performances from him. Amazing performances for Brook Lopez, one of the guys who was the reason they got past the Hawks in the Eastern Conference Finals. Just a defensive anchor for them. Didn't necessarily shoot it the best, but just fantastic performances from him. To stay in, always ready on the defensive end and always ready on the offensive end. And just another smaller player that I want to shout out is Bryn Forbes. He really didn't play in these finals, but he had big roles all throughout their Eastern Conference run and their run to the finals. So he also deserves a lot of credit as Brent Forbes. And now into kind of the upper echelon players that deserve a lot of credit and a lot of notice. First guy, obviously, being Drew Holiday, locking down big players throughout the whole entire playoffs and especially in these finals, doing an amazing job of stopping Chris Paul and even Booker when he was guarding him, and giving big offensive games every once in a while. You know, that's who Drew Holiday is. He's not the best shooter, he's not the best finisher, but every once in a while he has a game where he goes off. Obviously, that was Game 5 in this series, when Drew Holiday just absolutely turned it on and had an amazing game. And then, of course, the arguably best number 2 now in the NBA, Chris Middleton. What an absolute monster in these playoffs and in these finals. And I think these finals just showed how perfect of a fit he is for Giannis and these Bucks, but specifically Giannis. Him and Giannis are practically built for each other. And because Chris Middleton is just a closer, and he's that long, lengthy guard or wing who's going to get whatever shot he wants and can shoot over whoever he wants, and can score in the ISO, so it takes that pressure off Giannis. But he just showed it throughout this whole series, being an ice cold-blooded closer. And we saw it in Game 6 when they closed him out, and he hit some big mid-range shots towards the end of the game to keep their lead, and just had big games all throughout the playoffs. Maybe not as consistent possibly as they would have wanted, but obviously did more than enough to get them to where they got. Just a closer, getting whatever he shot he wanted, and showed the value of the mid-range once again. I think every player in this final series showed the value of the mid-range. You had Chris Paul a master at the mid-range. You had Middleton master at the mid-range. And even guys like Mikal Bridges shooting mid-range shots, just a lot of mid-range going on, and we saw how valuable it was, especially in the closing of games with Middleton. He hit countless mid-range shots to put away games for the Bucks. And of course, the biggest story coming out of these finals is Giannis finally winning the finals and doing it with the team that showed loyalty to him, and he showed loyalty to them, re-signing with them, and saying he wanted to do it in Milwaukee, and obviously he has. Just an amazing, amazing story on another level. Giannis just on another level, dominating whenever he wanted throughout the playoffs. Sometimes struggled early in series, but just amazing. And not to mention, he suffered one of the worst looking hyperextension knees that I've seen in a playoff series, especially. And when it happened, I actually thought he was done. I thought he'd torn his ACL. I thought he was done. Even if it wasn't ACL, it was a hyperextended knee. And we saw players like Kevin Durant be out for over a month with that, even in the playoffs a few years ago with the Warriors. And yet he comes back a week, 2 weeks later, and has one of the most dominant finals performances of all time. And so deserves a ton of credit for that, because I guarantee he was playing through some pain there. And of course, that game 6 performance, 50 points in the last game, 13 rebounds, 5 blocks. He just showed everything. He had two of the biggest, most amazing finals plays in history in this series, with his block and his alley-oop finish from Jrue Holiday. Just an unbelievable story. And I'd say probably no one besides maybe Chris Paul on the Suns deserved to win the championship more this year than Giannis. And that was seen by Giannis's reaction. I mean, all the emotion came out because he never allows himself to get too high, as he says, on his victories. But he won the championship. He was able to do that. And we just saw the emotion come out. And obviously, deservingly and easily, I would say he won the finals MVP and definitely deserved it, and showed he deserved it with that final performance. And then probably one of the biggest stories out of this game is him shooting 17 for 19 from the free throw line in the closeout game. That's 89.5%, basically 90% from the free throw line in that final game. When they needed it the most, he came through at the free throw line. And without those points, they probably don't win this game. So just another reason to show how amazing he is, and how he comes through when they need him. Just an amazing story, and definitely deserved MVP. I think Middleton, he got a lot of attention and got a lot of probably people wanting him to win MVP at points, but I think after that final game performance, Giannis just showed how he deserved it. I think he always deserved it. He could have had a total goose egg in this last game and still deserved that MVP of the finals. And kind of something that I thought of that really rings true for me, and I think is true, is Chris Middleton wins you games. He hits that final shot, but Giannis wins you a series. And we saw that throughout these playoffs, with Middleton coming through late in games and putting the finish on. But Giannis keeping the Bucks in every single game they played, and especially that game 6, we saw this. And there's no doubt that Giannis deserved the MVP and, of course, the championship. So that's really my main points about the Bucks and the Suns. There's just one more thing that I wanted to address before I finish, and it's that with them winning, there's been a lot made of he didn't do it with a super team. He did it his way. He earned his way. Some people saying that it's worth more than other championships, saying that Kevin Durant and LeBron have never done what he's done because they won it with super teams, and then other people saying that this is a super team, that Giannis did win it with a super team. It's not actually that special. And I just want to give my opinion on this. One, I want to say that discrediting any of LeBron's championships, even the ones on some of his stronger teams with the Heat, I think it's unfair to say he never won one like this with Giannis. Because I think almost all championships are completely earned, especially LeBron's. Maybe you can argue with some of Kevin Durant's, is his one better than KD's 2 with the Warriors? And it's debatable, or he might have had more with the Warriors. Anyway, I think that's debatable, but I think discrediting others because of this one is just hard to do. But I do think it is slightly more valuable because they did build this team, and he stayed and he was loyal, and it definitely, from a meaning standpoint, I think means a bit more. But that's a whole debate, and everyone has their opinions. But what I did want to say concretely is the Bucks are not a super team. And there were some people coming out, like I just mentioned, saying that, oh, this is a super team. He actually didn't do it that special. And I just want to emphasize that this is not a super team. And I'm going to get into why I think people think it's a super team in a second, but I just want to show how the big three is not the big three of what a super team would be. First off, Giannis goes without saying, he's a superstar and just amazing. But Middleton is an amazing player and played amazing in these finals and playoffs, and is definitely a number two. And probably if they have one more star, that this is considered a super team because of how good Middleton is. But Middleton didn't even make the All-Star game this year. He just came through in the playoffs and was amazing, just showed how good he was. And he's a number two. And if they had a third star, like I said, this could be a super team. But their third star was Jrue Holiday. And Jrue Holiday is an amazing defender, one of the best guard defenders in the NBA, if not all time, and locked down any player he wanted throughout this whole playoffs. But he is not even an all-star and has not been an all-star since 2013. So of course he's an amazing player, and he turned out to be an amazing number three for this team, but he is not a superstar that constitutes a big three. You think about big threes in the past, LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. I think, and KD, Clay, and Curry, and even Draymond in that team, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce. I just don't think that the Bucks had a number three to make them a super team. They didn't have that third superstar. They had Jrue Holiday, who played amazing in series, but it wasn't a super team to me. In the finals, he shot 31% from three and 36 from the field. That's pretty abysmal on offense. And obviously that's fine because he's not there for the offense. He came through in a game and it was massive, but he's there for the defense. 2.2 steals a game and facilitating at 9.3 assists. But that's not a superstar. That's a star, but it's not a superstar. Again, does not make them a super team. And anyone trying to say that Lopez makes them a super team is just weird, because he's not a star or an all-star. He just fits his role perfectly. He fits his role perfectly. And that leads me to the point of why I think people are misperceiving this as a super team. And I think it's because this team was so well built and worked so well, and all the players played so good in their roles. And just the team ended up scoring so many points and playing such good defense and looking so good that people are so used to only super teams looking like this. And so when a team that's not does it, it must be a super team. I think that's what the misconception is. It's been so long since the team has just been built perfectly, because in the past few years, the champions, except for maybe the Raptors, the super team champions, they're not perfectly built necessarily. They just all can kind of cover areas because they're so good. Whereas this team had players who fit and played their roles to perfection. Lopez locking down on the defensive, and Tucker locking down on the defensive, and Connaughton getting rebounds and also hitting this shot up threes. Middleton closing out games, Jrue Holiday locking down guys. Everyone performed their role so well, and the team played so well that it was hard to imagine that a regular team could do this without being a super team. So I just want to say that the Bucks were not a super team. They were obviously a good team because they won the championship, and they were a great team, but they were not a super team. So I just really wanted to say that. But that's really it for me on my reaction to this finals. Once again, big shout out to the Suns and how well they played. But overall, congratulations to the Bucks, and especially to Giannis for earning this championship. It was a blast to watch, and hopefully they come and do it again next year. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you have any points that you think are important that you don't think I talked about in this video, please let me know in the comments. If you have any ideas for videos you want me to make, also let me know those in the comments. I would love to see them. Thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.